I am starting a podcast.
And to kick things off, I'll be showing you an inside look to the animated cover of Timeless Reading.
So, ever since I started learning to row, I have been wanting to do readings in my own way forever. So, this podcast is me doing general readings, but also covering real world experiences, tips, and advice, all inspired by Tarot. Mind you, had you asked me like a couple of years ago if I would be knee deep in spirituality, I probably would have laughed in your face, even though I actually grew up going to church. My family was a big part of it. You see, my grandmother was the treasurer. My mother read children's stories. Her, my sister, and I were all in the choir. It's not like spirituality was even new to me. I just never really subscribed specifically to religion or church. Either way, I love the intellectual side of it, how we're all connected and seeing how certain things play out. So I decided it was finally time to do this podcast.
So for this cover, I'm not going to go completely in depth here, but the full written version is available on my Patreon along with all the links to the resources used. What up, y'all? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Melody Nieves, and today we are working on a very special project. I just decided to finally start this idea I've had for a very long time. I'm not gonna say it yet, but this idea needs a cover. So today we're gonna be working on the cover for it, and I'm gonna start off by figuring out what it should look like in the first place with a thumbnail. Now, I've recorded a little bit of this process already, and surprisingly enough, it seems to be coming out. It seems to be coming together really well. So I want to see where else I can take this, and let's check it out. Yeah.
I love the brainstorming process, getting in the mood, lighting a few candles, and really allowing the idea to come to me instead of forcing it. And the ideas come in different ways. In my Photoshop course, I saw the picture and then had the idea. But for this cover, I focused more on the words timeless reading and drew a few thumbnails in Procreate to get started.
So far, I really like the first thumbnail. I'm not sure what I'm going to come up for the second one, but I want to at least get 2 ideas down before moving on to the photo manipulation.
It's like my first idea was it, and I knew it was it, but I didn't want to commit yet. I just knew I wanted something ethereal, like a statue person hanging out in the clouds. The clock would denote time, of course, and I wanted it to have that overall feeling of a spiritual journey. You know, sometimes you can push for more ideas, and sometimes I feel like if you know you got it that first time, just go for it.
So this next idea that I'm having is sort of kind of tricky. I just pulled a couple cards to see, like, you know, just for a little spiritual help. I got the 3 of Swords, the 6 of Wands, and the 10 of Swords reversed. So what I got from this idea was that, like, you can be on your way towards success, and along that way there's going to be all of these different heartaches that you're going to encounter. But at the same time, you're kind of in this like endless pursuit for success and recognition and being seen for the first time, or just being seen in general. Along the way, that heartache is going to come with all these different lessons that show you that you're gonna have to be able to take those swords out of your back every single time. I've only got that. So I'm gonna see what else I can do to kind of come up with a clearer design for this idea. Okay, so I sort of kind of changed my mind on the idea just a little bit. It's still kind of like that same idea of having the world on your shoulders, but I just saw a really cool Al Pacino Scarface reference of the trophy that he had, the big old "the world is yours" trophy that he had. So I was thinking about the same kind of concept where
My second idea wasn't horrible, it's just all about the clock now. I put it on this guy's back, like I don't know who this guy is.
I don't know if it's going to be as good of an idea as the first. I'm going to be real. I'm really liking the first idea so far, but at least this one is way better than what I was going with. So, yeah.
We all know I went with the first one anyway. Once I have my idea, I'm scrolling for hours, bookmarking pictures left and right, seeing what could work. All the pictures are free from Unsplash, a free stock photography website. The only thing that is premium is this vintage font from designer Cuisine.
At first, I was considering putting myself in the cover, but I'll be real with you. Like, I would much rather it be somebody else.
I went with this lovely lady. Now that I have my star, I can pick out the best pictures to complement her style. I love these white and gold colors that have that 17th century Baroque style you see in palaces and decor. So just from the scrolling alone, now I have a good idea of which colors to use too. Let's begin. Lately, I've been learning the power of a good test run. And what I mean is that instead of jumping right into Photoshop, I take all the pictures, drop them into Procreate, piece them together like one big old puzzle, and this really helps me figure out which ones are gonna work and which ones definitely won't. Like I had about 4 different clocks I could use, and I knew this brass clock would be a pain to cut out, but the other ones could not compare to this final look. The other great thing about test runs is that you get an idea of what settings and adjustments you'll need in the software. So I already know which colors I'm using, the blend modes and everything, but it is just practice, so I'm not gonna lock myself into these settings either. Once I'm ready, I take both these references, save them as PSD files, and open up Photoshop to start the official cover. Podcast covers are really big file-wise, so I'll need to resize both my thumbnail and test references to place everything just right. Since the focus is the model, all I really need is her head, so I'm gonna just cut that right out of the picture, drop it over the test cover. And you know, her body language is cute here, it's super coy and everything, but what I am looking for is strong body language with a little more fierceness, so I'll straighten her head out, then get rid of everything else with a few masks. As usual, I do love me some big hair, and I can blend the front pieces right into the back by just taking a few away. For the background, I'll flip a picture of these clouds, fill up the space, then add more from this sunset picture. And because I'm using my keyboard, I can put everything exactly where I need using the up, down, left, and right arrow keys. By the way, if you feel like you suck at composition sometimes, like me too, you're definitely not alone here. But testing it out in the beginning made life so much easier, and now I can just put everything together and worry about the colors later. With my original thumbnail, I drew a car on the road, and while I like this idea, it's just that it wasn't really working with any of the pictures I could find, so I replaced it with this beautiful mountaintop instead, which is already immersed in some clouds, and I think it actually ended up working out much better in the end. Aren't these big old clouds awesome? They are my favorite. Especially this bottom left piece. I feel like, especially with the Baroque style, it almost gives that impression of a puffy princess sleeve. It adds to that overall goddess appeal I like, and I want this to be an elegant cover, so this is definitely one of the details that I really love. If you do follow this tutorial, I'm gonna just go ahead and apologize now because, honey, this damn clock. I already know it's a pain, you ain't even gotta tell me. And do not be fooled by the fast forwarding I use here, because cutting everything out section by section took me a good 20 minutes to do. But when it's all done, you get this clean brass clock. Now we are in the sky, so let's add a beautiful sunset in the distance. Luckily, this picture already has some clouds in it, and the clouds below it are from the same picture, so that's good, because just like a movie, continuity is key. I don't have a road anymore, but I still want to fill up the bottom, so I figured a shadow would help to fill up some of that space. And you can turn anything into a shadow real quick with hue and saturation, like a copy of the clock itself. Flip it, then adjust the perspective for a believable look. I also lightened it to fit the environment and gave it a little blurriness with a quick Gaussian filter. A little decoration goes a long way, and it's definitely going to help to elevate the clock design. So I added these pretty gold leaves into the mix. If you're wondering, on my Patreon, I do go a little bit more into the symbolism behind all these details, some of which I didn't even realize, like the Pegasus representing freedom and imagination. But I'm also just using these elements, generally speaking, for a beautiful look all on their own. And remember, these need shadows too, so I'll do the same steps as before, making sure everything reflects what I already have for the clock. So face makeup and jewelry is next. The original idea has this very alien-esque warrior vibe, but I wanted to dial it back a bit and really class it up for the final cover. I started with these wreaths from the gate from the actual Palace of Versailles, then finagled the quick little necklace and pendant to match from the gate as well. With this new jewelry, these hoops just aren't doing it. The stamp tool is going to help me solve that by helping to cover the old earrings with new pieces of hair. Then I can add my own jewelry, like the ones from these two lovely sets, also from Unsplash, because apparently I be just window shopping online. They do both look great on their own, but what I'm thinking here is, what if I combined them together for a whole new set? Huh? Pretty fire, I thinks. The last pieces to add are wreaths for the border. I used the same ones from the makeup, but instead of placing them vertically like the original, I made them horizontal, and they end up framing her so much better. But with so much gold going on, it is best if I can get these colors all the same tone, so I clipped a bunch of hue and saturation layers to each jewelry piece and colored them about roughly the same. Now it's time for a new color palette. I've seen a lot of these pictures online where a person has clouds for hair, and I wanted to make a similar effect, but I also really just love her natural hair, so instead I'm gonna lighten it, then recolor the hair and face for that statue look I was talking about earlier. I found this crazy marble picture to overlay on top for a little more grunge and texture. And surprisingly, it was a really cool experiment that worked out. If your Photoshopping computer can handle it, try to keep adjustment layers separate from everything else, at least for as long as you can. That way you can always go back and retweak the colors if need be. Like in this case, making the jewelry darker for a deep, brassier tone. Now everything matches the clock more. And I purposely didn't test this out in the beginning because I just didn't want to waste a lot of time on the colors, but you know, definitely don't be too rigid here. Extra settings like color lookup, levels, and gradient map quickly add harmony to this palette. And with the jewelry change now, everything just feels like it's starting to make a whole lot more sense. Every time I make photo manips, I try to hold off on the painting as long as I can, usually waiting for this moment when all the colors gel together. Now I can readjust her hair, getting the body and style I want. Then add shadows to all the jewelry with a few simple layer blend modes. I also need to start thinking about this neck, so I just decided to paint it myself. And at first I was gonna blank out her eyes, but then I went for this subtle, hazy look that ends up fitting the makeup I apply later. So I usually paint in stages, first starting with the darkest shadows. This just helps me keep everything organized. Y'all would be so proud, by the way. I finally got some glasses recently, and I've been wearing this smoky eye look in person, so I decided to recreate it on her. I contoured the face first, then added some extra eye makeup for a little more drama. And because everything is already monochromatic, I can get that nice smoky effect without needing to change the color. Base colors are next, mostly for the face. She is so pretty. Don't she look like Beyonce here? Child, if I had her face, it would be over for y'all. I might have actually been in this cover. Then I finally bring in some light from that nice sunset we got in the background. Lighting is also really important, and I feel like this is the moment when everything comes together. This is definitely lighting from an illustrator or digital painter's perspective. Clouds do tend to bounce sunshine in really interesting ways, so I definitely wanted to bring that out with some highlighted strands. This light is also really great for jewelry. And eventually I paint some on the border to reflect the direction of the light. One of my favorite moments was realizing I could get the same look of that grainy texture from the photo by just using a grainy airbrush from Photoshop's Legacy brush set. But this time I went in and shaded the neck and the necklace with a lot more organic shadows, painting them myself. That way I can make this feel like it was almost entirely painted. Even though the lighting looks great, when you zoom in at 100% though, that painting is gonna look a lot crazy. So this is when I get in there and clean everything up and paint over all of these details by hand. This is gonna take hours, mind you, so do not rush this process. You can redistribute the lighting better and bring an overall crisp appearance by using a heavier brush. And as much as I would like to say I can paint this quick, I can't, and Photoshop would definitely never keep up. So this is sped up, but that's all I'm pretty much doing here. Sharpening everything from her hair to her bone structure to the makeup, just because every little detail counts. To deepen the colors, I'll use color balance and selective color. Then I'll move right into the final white highlights, which I usually save for last. At this point, I feel like she also needs a little bit more hair, so I just copied this little section from the original picture, then used a quick layer blend mode to get the look I need. As always, I add a few white outlines or speckled little dots to my work. And for the final podcast title, I went with this The Crow premium font, applying a few layer styles to get that vintage gold lettering effect. Here is the final static cover.
You'd think I was done, but I didn't stop there.
To animate this clock, I brought it right into Adobe Premiere, but to make it a functioning one, I first removed that middle circle piece, the hour and minute hands in Photoshop, then repaired the center with the clone stamp tool. Once I get back into Premiere, I animated the hands individually by rotating them while placing new key points along the timeline for each rotation. This is a really rough example because I definitely needed to clean it up in the end, but after a few more effects, this is the final animated cover.
Hopefully by the time you see this video, I should have the first episode for the podcast up. I'm really excited for y'all to see it. I hope you guys loved hearing a little bit about the cover. Remember to subscribe to my channel, and to follow along with the written version, head on over to my Patreon.